this is Tony from her Homestead Skills, and in today's video I am going to preserve eggs. Now, I have never dehydrated eggs in the past, and that is the way I'm going to preserve them. I have made pickled eggs, and I do have a video for pickled eggs. It's an old one, it's been around for a while. But this is to preserve eggs long term. I'm going to turn them into a powder. A number of reasons for doing that. One of them is that I may decide to do a short camping trip this year. I'm looking into that to see if I want to do that or not. I have not gone camping in over 30 years, if not longer than that. I hated it, but this time it's going to be just Mark and I, so it might not be too bad. As well, you know, it's definitely used. Powdered eggs are definitely useful if you're camping. And the other thing is that I hear that eggs may go up in a huge way price-wise. I mean, they're already up. Definitely paying more, quite a bit more than what I used to for eggs. But I hear that $12 a dozen? Now that would be totally outrageous. I understand that there are valid reasons for that. I understand that putting aside the supply chain issue, which is affecting everything, the gas issue, which is, you know, transporting anything, is affecting prices right across the board as well. But we also have feed prices for the birds, and that's gone up. And of course that's going to bring the cost up, as well as there has been a disease running through the existing chicken flock, and many birds had to be destroyed. Therefore, these eggs, the supply of eggs is going to be either expensive or in short supply. So I don't know how that'll affect Canada, if it affects us at all, but $12 a dozen, $1 an egg is a very hefty price to pay. So I'm doing what I can to make sure that I have some eggs in hand, and my preferred method of preserving eggs today, after doing all my research, is to dehydrate them. Now, you can dehydrate them raw, you can dehydrate raw eggs, or you can cook them up and then dehydrate them. And I have chosen to, for safety's sake, I've chosen to cook them first and then dehydrate and then turn it into a powder. So that's what we're going to do today. Now, I have researched a number of different ways of doing it. I've never preserved eggs before, but I am going to do the cooking them, dehydrating them, and then turning them into powder, which is probably one of the ones that I think are, personally, one of the safer methods of preserving eggs. So I've gone out this morning to one of the stores where I shop at, and picked up 3 dozen eggs, and I'm going to start off with at least 1.5 dozen, and I'm going to hard boil them. Let's see how many I can fit in this container, but at least 1.5 dozen. And you want to cover them completely in water, and the best way to boil eggs is, or to make nice hard-boiled eggs, is to bring them up to a boil and then turn it off and let it sit for 10 or 15 minutes. And you don't get the green developing around the yolk. So I'm going to do that, and it looks like I managed to get 18. I'm going to put a little bit more water in that. Don't need much, but you want to totally cover the eggs. And after that, we will peel and slice. I picked up an egg slicer because I didn't have one, and I'm going to put them on my dehydrator trays. So that is my method. Okay, my water has just come to a boil. It's not a hard rolling boil, but it is boiling, so I'm going to turn the heat off and put a lid on and set the timer for 12 minutes. Okay, my 12 minutes have completed, And now I'm just going to get these run under cold water to stop the cooking. Okay, that water's cold, but I'm going to add some ice to it as well. And then we're going to let this sit for at least 14-15 minutes before we try to peel them. So that should cool it down substantially. Okay, and when I went to the store to buy eggs, I also picked up some ground meat. We're out of meatballs, so I have a job ahead of me to make a bunch of meatballs, and I do like to make them ahead of time so that when we make dinner, it's an easy process. And that particular store is also the one where I buy my chicken carcasses, so I picked up another 2 packages of those. I don't feel like working those today or in the next day or two, so I put them in the freezer for when I feel more so inclined. We do have enough chicken stock on hand for the time being, but there's no harm in building up that supply as well. Okay, I have peeled all my eggs, and actually they sat a lot longer than just the 15 minutes. I left them to cool and went out for a while. So now I am using this little egg slicer just to make the job quicker, and I'm just going to put them on the dehydrating tray. That and the quickness of the job and the fact that I can get them all the same thickness. I did go out and buy this little tool specifically for this job, but I'm sure it'll come in handy for other things as well. And yes, it's working very nicely. Don't know how many trays this is going to take. I have 18 eggs here, but once this is done, it'll give me an indication of how many eggs I can do. And yes, you can separate eggs and yolk if you want, but I haven't bothered. I'm doing whole eggs. And apparently, from my research, we would want to set the dehydrator tray at 140 degrees, and that is a little bit higher than I normally set it for other things, but there is always the concern with eggs for salmonella, but these eggs are cooked, they're not raw, so that should not be an issue, but I will still set them at the 145 and see how that works out. And it looks like I could have gotten a whole lot more than just 18 eggs in this. That's what, 3 so far, I believe. But, well, good to know. You never know until you do the first one how many can fit on each of these trays. And of course, once this is dry, then we're going to grind this into a powder. I'm definitely glad I bought this little slicing tool. It was probably the least expensive one I could find. It was only $8-9. So, and does the job for what I want. And of course it can be used when I'm making other egg dishes as well. Okay, 1 tray. And we'll just continue this process until we have all the trays, all the eggs done and on trays and dehydrating. Of course, to grind it, all I have is my little magic bullet, but I think that that should do the trick. Actually, I do have a coffee grinder, and that I never use for grinding coffee. I use it to grind spices, but that should work as well. It's just that you can't put as much into it. Okay, so I'm going to continue along here, and when I have completed this process, I will get back to you. Okay, so that is my 18 eggs, and I do have one tray left that didn't get used, so I could easily have done another 5 eggs. So I know that for the next time around that I do this. So 23 eggs is what my dehydrator will take. So now I'm going to put this on the dehydrator, and I'll be done for the day until these are dry. Okay, this is Tony from Her Homestead Skills. I hope you enjoyed today's video, and we will catch you on the next one. Bye for now.